all things Astros with your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and Astros broadcaster and former third baseman Jeff Blum. Now, here's Balke and Blummer.
What's up, H-Town? Welcome to episode 31 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. I'm Jeff Balke. Jeff Blum with me, as always. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and, of course, YouTube. Be sure and like and subscribe to keep up with us. And give us a follow on Twitter while it exists, at Believe in Astros. You can find me at Jeff Balke, and Blummer's at Blummer27. Hit us up and let us know what's going on. Blummer, how are you doing this morning?
I'm fantastic. Things are actually pretty good. The offseason is starting, and there's some movement in the stove much earlier than I think even we anticipated. But yeah, I'm doing great, man. How about you?
I'm good. I mean, trying to stay warm. I will say this to anybody who's listening to this before Saturday. Saturday's going to suck, man. The high is going to be like 47. It's going to rain all day. My recommendation is stay inside as much as possible. If you have a fireplace, light a fire. Don't burn your house down, obviously, but, get the fire going.
Houston is amazing in the sense that it could be summer and immediately get into the middle of winter. That blows my mind.
Well, they always talk about there's two seasons in Texas, right? There's like, there's like summer and then 1 week of winter and then like whatever it is. Yeah. But I tell you, Houston gets the thing about Houston is because there's so much humidity, it gets downright bone chilling sometimes here. I'm going to New York in a few weeks. And I'm praying to God it's not going to be like in the 20s when I'm up there because I'm too much of a tenderfoot now, man.
Dude, I don't have enough clothing. I'm a layers guy because being here in
same.
Houston, you don't need that big parka. But, man, I will layer up like a crazy man because I do not like the cold. Once it gets in, I can't get it out.
I was in New York a few years ago, and I remember it was the first time I'd been there in a long time when it was in the winter. And it was in the 20s. And I remember experiencing the feeling of sweating and freezing at the same time. And I was like, this is not right. I don't know how people live like this. It's insane. All right, let's give a word to our sponsor. Basketball is back. Houston Rockets back. And BetOnline remains your number one source for all sports betting needs this season. The Rockets actually won one, so now they're up to 3 wins. So look out, over-under. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long, all year long, really, when you consider this as a whole. Like right now, World Cup this weekend, so I'm sure there's plenty of betting lines on World Cup. Like what's the over-under on Qatar banning women from the soccer matches? Like, there's a lot going on there. Always the fastest and easiest. Yeah, exactly. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events: NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure and use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. Well, Blummer, like you said, the hot stove season is heated up quite quickly. We've seen some transactions already go down, some trades. The Mariners are obviously quite active. Justin Verlander wins the Cy Young Award. No shock. Everyone saw it coming. Unanimous selection for that. And it's been reported by Jim Crane himself, shockingly, that Justin Verlander wants Max Scherzer money, which would put him in the 3 years, $130 million range. And then somebody, I forget who it was yesterday, mentioned that they think Verlander could get 2 years, $90+ million.
Holy.
Which is just, I mean, that's unreal. This feels like it's pricing the Astros right out of this. I mean, granted, we knew the Astros weren't going to go crazy because they have such a deep pitching staff, but I can't see them spending $45 million a year on Justin Verlander. No offense to JV.
No offense to JV, and again, congratulations to him for bouncing back from Tommy John surgery. You know, there's so many firsts with that. You know, the first guy to, in the first year back from Tommy John to get the surgery or get the Cy Young Award.
Yeah.
Taking a year off from baseball, coming back and winning a Cy Young is another miraculous thing. You know, he's going to be the comeback player of the year. So many things trending in the right direction for Justin. He earned it too. He works his tail off. He's hyper talented. pitched on a great team, obviously. I don't think, he may pitch as well somewhere else, but I don't think he racks up the W's like he did with Houston. That's just my selfish bias, because watching a lot of these games, that defense picked him up. Some of these big hits picked him up. So congratulations to him. It was also good to see Fromber get some votes in there. He got recognized. He might have been fourth on that list. So
he was.
The franchise getting some recognition. But that leads me to what you're talking about. Steve Cohen kind of set the table by giving Max Scherzer, 3 years, $130 million.
Right.
At I think $43.5 million per year. So that's the same age range. Similar statistics. Both those guys kind of leapfrog each other every other start as far as strikeouts, career strikeouts. So that's kind of a lot of fun to watch. But at the same time, with that market being set and Justin coming off a 39-year-old year with a Cy Young, he immediately puts himself in that category of 40+ million. So it's going to be interesting. The only problem is by asking for that much money, that the 6 other guys that could be the potential rotation for the Houston Astros leverage JV right out of it. Because you're going to have 6 starters that are making less than his 1-year contract, and they're going to be just as good, if not better, next season in that rotation. He is obviously a luxury item in the sense that he pitches like an ace. He trains like an ace, so that kind of filters down through the rotation. But I think that the Astros have a number. They've given it to Justin and said, hey, we're going to leave this on the table. This is just my assumption. This is how I would handle it. I would just give him a number and say, hey, we love you. You've succeeded here. 2 World Series championships, 2 Cy Youngs. You're gonna have every opportunity to get to 300 wins because we win a lot of games. But here's the number. Here's the years. It's sitting here on the table. When you go out there fishing and you don't catch what you want, we'll always be here. Just keep that in mind.
What are the odds of him and Max Scherzer both ending up on the Mets too?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, we both cover the game, but I mean, what Steve Cohen is doing in New York and, having conversations within the game of baseball and understanding how much this guy does not care. I don't think he doesn't care about money, but I think he has enough money not to care. And he desperately wants to overshadow the Yankees. So I wonder, how much that motivation's there. But I'm not too sure. I'd have to go back and research it a little bit. But I'm not too sure Scherzer and Verlander are the best of friends.
That's an interesting point. I wonder about things like that too. Is Verlander? He doesn't strike me as a guy, especially at this point in his career, who's going to choose, a team based solely on money. The guy.
I'm curious about that. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. But that doesn't mean he's not, because look, Blum, tell me, how much pressure are guys like this under to take these contracts, not just for themselves and their agents, who obviously want every penny they can get, but for other baseball players? Is there a lot of pressure on these guys?
Well, that's the undercurrent that you don't see too often, and kind of goes on behind the scenes. And you won't hear guys say, I agreed to this contract because the union felt it was best to set the market at this bar. So what you do here underneath, and this even happened on a couple of contracts that I had back in the day. And if you go back and look at my deals, I wasn't breaking anybody's bank. I was just a complimentary player that got a reasonable contract. But the idea was, how do you set the market for that particular position, for that, that niche that you're trying to create? Yeah. And obviously Justin Verlander being on the market, and I think this is another interesting caveat to the JV market and maybe a New York Mets, signing, Jacob deGrom. If JV goes out there, gets $45 million or $40 million, guess who else is going to get something pretty damn close, if not more?
Probably
it's going to be
more.
A Jacob deGrom.
Yeah, probably more, given that he's a little younger.
And the years, too. He may get a couple more years tacked onto that. Yeah. But all that being said, you're right in the sense that there are entities underneath the Major League Baseball Players Union that will come in and say, hey, we understand that you want to take a discount, play at home, whether it be San Diego or Houston because of the tax break, whatever it may be. But they go in there and they go, hey, if you could go get that annual average value up, we would really appreciate that. And a lot of other guys behind you would appreciate that too, because it bumps everybody behind you up.
Yeah, I just learned the term AAV recently. I had not really paid much attention to it. And then somebody said annual average value, and they kept saying AAV over and over. It's on Talking Baseball podcast, which is a great podcast. And they kept saying AAV, and I was like, what the hell is AAV? And I looked up, I'm like, oh, well, that makes total sense, because that average annual value is such a big deal, not just for teams, obviously, who are worried about it, but for the players. Like you said, baseball's unique, too, because like in other sports, you don't have the potential for like really long careers, like that you do in baseball. Baseball, if a guy gets in and he's serviceable and can play, you could be in Major League Baseball for a lot of years, but not in football. Obviously, you make it a few years and then get killed. Basketball too, and basketball obviously so many fewer players make teams. But yeah, in baseball you have setting that bar has got to be really important, because it's not just important for you now; it's important for the next guy coming along. That's a really fascinating angle to me.
Yeah, and that's part of the free agent market, and that's why you have these guys, bouncing off each other, and that's why you may not see guys sign until, December, January, February, because they are trying to push that market a little bit, and that kind of leads into the whole Rizzo conversation, because they'll use opposing teams to leverage each other, and, the Rizzo situation with the news coming out about the Astros really going after Anthony Rizzo, guess what he did? Hey, Brian Cashman, how's it going? These guys really want me. But if you really want me back, you'll show me. And they showed him. They got him.
That smelled so much like a classic agent maneuver. Leak a story.
Just leak it out there.
Just leak a story that some team is gung-ho, man. We're going to come and get him. And then the next thing you know. And ironically, Rizzo signed that deal like the day we were talking about it, which I'm like, did he listen to us?
Dude, we let that great podcast out, and I saw the news, and I was like, come on, man.
Did we screw up? And what was that famous that great line from All the President's Men, when he's talking about how he used to work at the White House, and they did a big report about how so and so was going to be named as the FBI director for life or whatever, and so that he wasn't going to be, and the next day. LBJ named him the FBI director for life, Hoover, and then he said, his press guy turned to him and said, tell him we said F you. Like basically, Ben Bradley is like, tell Ben we said F you. And it was and I feel like maybe that's what we did. Maybe we got Rizzo so like hyped that Brian Cashman was like, hey, listen. Yeah, we just heard on the Believe in Astros podcast, guys.
Yeah,
that there's
we don't want to give a Yankee to the Astros so bad that we're going to go sign this guy immediately.
Oh, that's the biggie. And I'll tell you, the biggest shoe to drop though is going to be Judge. I don't know what's going to happen with Judge. Like the fact that he has not gone back to the Yankees at this point is it's. I know that there's a lot of offseason to go here. And a lot of hot stove. But when that happens, that's going to be monumental. And if he leaves New York,
oh man,
that is going to be something.
Well, we talking about JV's contract, would you say 2 years, whatever ridiculous number,
97 million.
That's going to be a guy that might be like, until Shohei Ohtani has a chance to go out there and test that market, Aaron Judge might be that $500 million guy.
It's the numbers. God damn.
Think about that.
$500 million. Holy crap. It's just unbelievable. So with no Rizzo now, the Astros weren't, I kind of question whether that was even a real report or not, but nevertheless, I like you have been a Jose Abreu guy, since the beginning. He's a guy that has a track record. He's going to produce. Also, with him, he's not going to command a long-term deal because he's 36. So you're not going to be giving him you're not going to worry about him coming in saying, I want 7 or 8 years. He's going to want 2 or 3 years, and it's going to be fine. And then, of course, there's still some rumors out there that the Astros are interested in Wilson Contreras. Which would certainly solve the bat problem, and then maybe you could bring Yuli back at a deal for first base. And then there's Josh Bell is still floating around there, although who knows. And the Astros have no GM at the moment, so this is all Jim Crane and some assistant GMs doing all this. Where do you think they go next? They obviously need a bat. They obviously need a lefty bat. Where do you think they go next? Or is it going to be something completely outside of the box that we didn't see coming?
It could be completely outside the box, but like you said, not having a GM in place kind of lends itself to a lot of people with a lot of different ideas without the focus, and that's just on the outside looking in. There's going to be different ideas where I feel like if you did have a GM, they would have a little more of a tighter lane that they're in looking at guys. But I agree with you in the sense that, if you could get a left-handed bat, that would be maybe ideal just to add another wrinkle into that lineup because they're so right-hand dominant. So that kind of lends itself to Josh Bell, who's probably a better left-handed hitter, and a lot of the reason for that is that as a switch hitter, you're going to see probably 30 to 25% more. I would say 60 to 70 more percent chances on the left-handed side because there's so many right-handed pitchers. Right. But I think Jose Abreu is appealing. The Cuban connection with the city of Houston and that ballpark and that team is something wonderful. They know what they're getting in a 36-year-old Cuban player who already has an MVP under his belt in Jose Abreu. He's going to move into a lineup that he would fit into beautifully. Yeah. But Josh Bell, the left-handed part, is probably a little bit better appeal and might be a better price tag than Jose Abreu, to be honest with you. But if you do have to salvage one more year out of Yuli, is that the worst thing that you get? Because if you get some sporadic life out of that bat and he continues to play that defense that he does, you're in pretty good shape because the defense is primarily what you're trying to do to protect your pitching. But there's some interesting names, but the worst case scenario isn't all that bad.
No, you're right. There was a story yesterday. I don't know if you read Larry the GM, but he's got really fascinating stuff where he breaks things down. And he had a really interesting breakdown with Yuli where he showed that his numbers after days off were substantially better than his numbers where he played days in a row. I mean, like hugely better. And he said if you look at the postseason, what happened? He got days off, Yeah. And he began to hit better. So it does sort of raise the question of could they maybe platoon Yuli and give him more opportunities to get some rest and not have to play that everyday first base. It's going to be a super interesting thing to watch. Speaking of interesting thing to watch, Pedro Leon has been raking in the Puerto Rican Winter League. His coach is Alex Cintron, the Astros batting coach. He's 4 for 10 with a double and a home run in his first 2 games down there. He's playing full-time center field now. They had shuttled him around it, like they played him at shortstop a little and second base, but he's got a great arm for playing in the outfield. I wonder if he'll factor at all. I mean, it's obviously going to get an invite to spring training, but I wonder how he will factor into the Astros for next year.
Ho-hum, just another guy that could potentially be a rookie of the year. I mean, this is unbelievable, dude. I know. If I'm outside the organization and I'm in an opposing organization, I'm sitting and I'm going down to Puerto Rico or some of these winter ball leagues, and I'm going, man, there's some good talent down here. Wow, this Pedro Leon guy's great. Who's he with? The freaking Houston Astros? Are you serious? So it's another guy, and going back to what you said about Jim Crane kind of leading the conversation as far as the hot stove's concerned, because there isn't a GM in place, is that he's kind of mentioned, maybe a corner outfielder would be kind of nice for the Astros, and I don't know if that means Michael Brantley comes back. That's another left-handed bat, by the way, or do they stay internally? Because the more you watch Pedro Leon, the more you're like, I could save myself $15 to $20 million a year with this guy coming in. And you got to remember, as good as Chas McCormick performed in the postseason, and I'll say this, I think he's a better corner outfielder than he is a center fielder.
I agree with you.
And he has a lot of experience on the corners. So if you think about inserting a Pedro Leon into center field, you could have Chas protect him in center field by playing maybe against some tougher right-handed pitching, whatever it may be, and then move Yordan to left field and let him play sporadically out there in left. There's some movement out there, but the fact that they have an option in Pedro Leon is fascinating to me. To have guys consistently, at least every year, have the potential to move in and be a rookie star type guy in this lineup. Yeah. But just so a lot of people know, Pedro Leon, you talked about him playing shortstop. If you're playing up the middle of the diamond, second base, shortstop, center field, you are a very good athlete. And you have to be very savvy in the way the game works because you have to anticipate and be in the right position for a lot of plays. So that just knowing that he has moved from shortstop to center field explains a lot about not just the physicality that he's able to play at, but also the mentality. He's doing a good job of playing the game of baseball. But physically, the dude's a beast. He's thick, he's fast, he's strong. He's not just a your standard center field type hitter that sprays the ball and gets on base. The dude's got pop.
Oh, he does. He definitely has some pop out of that bat, and he has pretty good control over his strike zone awareness. He's not a total free swinger. That's something obviously the Astros will need to fine tune in him, which they do in all rookies. I mean, you saw what happened with Jeremy Pena, the kind of roller coaster ride he had that ended, wonderfully. The other thing too is the Rule 5 draft is coming up, and the Astros left a few guys off, particularly Corey Julks, which I really
that was the name that jumped to me too.
He's been playing really, really well. So can you explain to me? I just saw this the other day on the movie Philadelphia. Explain it to me like I'm a sixth grader. How does the Rule 5 draft work? I'm sure there's a lot of people who listen to us who don't really understand the Rule 5 draft. How does that thing even work? And I know that teams have to set a 40-man roster, and then everybody else is kind of up for grabs. How does that even work?
Well, and then you can have a Rule 5 at different levels. So you'll protect guys. I think it starts at AA. I'm not sure. I could be completely wrong, but it is kind of confusing. But I know that you can protect guys on a AAA roster so they can't be plucked. If you do take them, they've got to move to a certain position. But if you do pluck guys who are not on the 40-man roster, if, say, you're with the Astros, I'm with the Seattle Mariners, and I take Corey Julks in the Rule 5 draft, I have to put him in the major leagues for a full season in order to retain him. And I'm also paying you, I'm not sure what the number is, but I know back in my day, it was $50,000 or something weird. It wasn't a huge number, but it was big enough to where you had to send money to that team to buy that player.
I got you.
Off the Rule 5 draft. If I sent him back, then I got half my money back kind of thing. So it was this weird, strange transaction. But still, the idea was if you're willing to take this guy, you have to put him in the big leagues to show how much you like him. And you could pluck a guy, use him for 2 months, send him right back. So it's kind of interesting in that sense. But at the same time, it's a gamble. I think the idea of the Rule 5 draft was to try and create a little more equality across the board, because if you have an organization stacked, they can't protect every single guy. So if I'm the Kansas City Royals and I know that the Astros have a bunch of good pitchers and they're not protecting every single one of them, I can go get them and bring them over to my organization and have him pitch in the big leagues for a year, and now he's mine. But that's kind of the gist, or maybe the cliff notes of it. There's a lot of logistical stuff underneath, but that's kind of the idea, is to kind of be able to pluck talent off of other teams and use them for your own benefit. But there is a risk involved in that. That's
really interesting. I know that each year there are guys that end up going to teams, and it happens, but I do know it's not huge numbers. It's not like it's not like every team is like collecting a whole bunch of guys. And obviously for those reasons, there are risks involved. You have to put them on the major league roster. I would think Corey Julks, though, would be a good candidate. I'm a little surprised they didn't protect him. I don't know what that means exactly. Who the hell knows these things?
Well, I mean, that's the other thing too, is like if you're in the other organization and you kind of maybe earmark some guys, you're like, oh, I wonder if he gets left off, and he does. You're going, why didn't they protect him? I mean, are they messing with me? Should I take the chance?
Oh my God, it's baseball's an emotional game. You know how it is.
It truly is.
So I want to just diverge just a moment, if we might, for the last few minutes of the podcast. So there have been reports of Twitter dying. Look, I've read a lot about it. I know, chaos. It's like, and obviously since Elon Musk took over, he canned like half their staff, and now like another big chunk of their staff is left after he demanded they pledge fealty to him or whatever the hell it is. I mean, here's the thing though. So Twitter is my favorite social media platform. It always has been my favorite. And the reason I like it is because you can curate it, right? It's tough to curate something like Facebook, because Facebook is like oftentimes friends and family members and stuff like that. So it's tough to just and also every other social media platform is non-chronological, right?
Yeah.
Twitter, you can look at a feed and see it as it happens moment by moment. To me, it is the modern day teletype machine that they used to have back in the 70s.
Good call.
When news would come across, and you'd always see in the old news, like, it's like printing the thing. And
it's like the ticker on the bottom, like the stock market, but news or
exactly
whatever you feel necessary to look at. Yeah.
Right. And if you curate it well, like I keep lists for sports and for different things, it can be very pleasant, right? The problem is, on the whole, it's a dumpster fire. But my thing is that if it does go away, because you guys use it all the time on the broadcast, Twitter Tuesdays and you have the polls of the night and all that kind of stuff. If it goes away, how does that impact? Like, because baseball is, like all sports, it's driven by the rumor mill, and the rumor mill is mostly driven on Twitter. I mean, I can't imagine that it's not going to have an impact.
Yeah, I mean, who are we going to give credit to first? I mean, that's going to be the big drama. Is like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to give Jeff Passan credit or J.P. Morosi? I mean, that's the first thing. But, the first thing I'm going to say is that Elon Musk might be the greatest troll ever. And the fact that he has enough money to buy it and troll everybody is friggin' hilarious. But I'm with you in the sense that those of us who actually use it for the purpose of knowledge and information and trying to stay ahead of the curve, like you said, curating is a very good word for it, because you can kind of use it as a functional tool to get information. But, we're going to have to go back to actually clicking on websites or something like that. I have no idea. But as well as I do, if something goes away, something will replace that vacuum. I don't know what it is, if it's a sports-specific Twitter-type app or anything like that. Yeah. I know there's other social media things out there, but part of me will miss it. Part of me is going to be like, dear God, thank you. I don't have to respond to some of these idiot fan bases that continue to go out there and just throw up, just diarrhea of the mouth and not having any. Oh man, they're just mindless tweets. Let's just say some of the mindless tweets will go away,
but in peace, John
it will
Boy
be
Media.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it'll be fascinating to see how this thing evolves if it does have to.
Yeah, obviously the one that is kind of people are looking towards is Mastodon, which I'm on but never use. I just have it because here's the deal: there are only about 4 Jeff Balkes that exist in the United States.
I was going to say, you're securing handles. You're going to sell them.
Listen. It's not. This is, understand. There are like 4 Jeff Balkes, right? And I know all of them. One's like a general practitioner doctor in Minnesota, and there's but one of them is a comic book colorist who's kind of well known. He lives in Chicago, and ever since I've been on, I was kind of an early adopter for a lot of these things. So I've gotten every Jeff Balke everywhere is me, right? And this guy, I messaged him one time. I was like, hey, you're another Jeff Balke. That's kind of cool. I'm sorry I've got all that. And literally nothing. He didn't respond to me or anything. And he goes to all of these conventions and stuff, right? As a colorist. He's done some pretty significant work. So he's got to be pissed. So every time there's a new anything, I'm like, I got to get this because this other dude's going to grab it.
Dude, you're hoarding Jeff Balke handles.
I basically am. I'm basically hoarding the handle.
It's messed up.
It's so stupid. But it's true, man, because if I lose it, what am I going to be, Jeff Balke 1? No, I can't do that. I can't live like that.
I mean, for a price, you could be if somebody else wanted to be the real Jeff
Balke. Exactly.
Yeah.
Give me that blue check mark. Oh, right. Now it's only $8. Anybody can have it.
I was going to say, for a price, you can have anything you want.
Speaking of things you can't live with, the World Cup, who got into bed with Qatar, which
blew my mind.
Let's just start with this. Qatar is a very, very oppressive Islamic regime. It's very similar to Saudi Arabia. Like, women can't drive cars. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. But setting aside the geopolitical and religious implications of all of that, they are hosting the World Cup, which of course is the World Cup, right? It's all the entire world brings their soccer teams there. One of their primary main sponsors is Budweiser, because of course it is, right? And
but you can't get it in the country.
48 hours before. Well, the thing is, as I read today, they serve alcohol in bars, right? So it's not like in hotel bars, right? Hotel bars.
Yeah.
But so now they have said 48 hours beforehand, they have said they are not going to allow the serving of beer at any soccer stadiums. Now, if you're in like a suite, right, you can still get your martini on if you want to. But if you're just part of the riffraff who's going to a game, you are not. Oh, they do. We're quick to point out that they still have non-alcoholic beer, which
because I'm in it for the flavor.
Well, thank God for that, right? But I'm just like, you banned beer 48 hours beforehand. Like,
dude, after everybody bought their tickets, after every vendor is set up, after every advertiser is ready to blow this thing, wide open. Oh my gosh!
Can you imagine if they just the day before the baseball season opened said, "Oh yeah, by the way, no beer at stadiums."
Somebody's going to do research on that and actually give a number of how much revenue in concessions they shut down. The only upside. The only upside is that maybe I don't feel like there's many fights in the World Cup anyways, but fans, there won't be much anger between them, or
it might be worse.
Maybe that might be not being lubed up might get them even more upset.
Don't get England, Scotland, and Ireland all in the same stadium at the same time with no beer. I mean,
are they setting up detox centers?
There are going to be people there going what am I supposed to do? They're going to be doing
they're looking at each other. They're just permanently in this position with their hand up and nothing in it. I should be holding something.
They're going to be on cruises where people sneak bladders of alcohol in, in their
that's what
luggage.
I was going to say, dude. Welcome to the 2023 World Cup here at Qatar. It's BYOB.
I saw that and I was just thinking to myself, listen, I'm not a big beer drinker. I drink, but I drink beer on occasion, but I do drink alcohol. And I can tell you this right now, if I'm going to a game and alcohol is not available, it might affect my decision on whether or not to go.
Well, especially the World Cup. I mean, that ticket price has got to be pretty strong. So, I mean, if I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to enjoy. I don't get smashed either, but why did it have to be so drastic? Why couldn't it have been hey, we'll serve in the first the first half, second half, no booze?
Well, that is kind of a common thing in a lot of places where they just cut everybody off after the 7th or 8th inning or whatever it is. Or in football, I know a lot of places they don't sell beer in the fourth quarter, right? They're especially college football and places like that. Mm-hmm. And I get that. That makes total sense, especially if you're from Philadelphia. But but in terms of this, it's and the other thing too that people have brought up is okay, they had promised that they were going to be open enough about this because they're having a lot of people, and then they just decided, no, we're not going to do that. So what's next? Again, it's
oh man,
I mean, it's hard for me to imagine people going there and being
you can only have unsalted peanuts.
Exactly.
Taking away the salt content.
Unsalted, unroasted peanuts. You get raw, dry peanuts. That's what you get. Nothing else for you.
All of a sudden, Judge Smales is running through the stands going, you will get nothing and like it.
Get nothing and like it. That's exactly right. And somebody will be like, $50, the Smales kid picks his nose. So, all right, Blummer. So what do you got going this weekend? It's finally you're off. Do you have plans? Are you going to enjoy yourself? What's going down?
I'm going to watch a lot of football on TV, obviously, like everybody else. I do not have anything planned other than the fact that my daughter is coming home from the University of Arkansas
for Thanksgiving.
And we will welcome, Thanksgiving week is starting, so I'm going to have family in town next week, and it's going to be a lot of fun. That's about it.
Are you doing Thanksgiving at your house?
Yeah, we usually have Thanksgiving at our house, and over Christmas break, we will do a destination Christmas usually.
Oh, cool.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, we'll use Thanksgiving as a family time to get everybody around.
Oh yeah, ours is going to be packed. We're going to have 22 people, 6 dogs, 2 babies. I mean, it's going to be outrageous.
It sounds crazy. It sounds crazy, but since we've moved to Houston, we've missed out on that. I love those big family events because they're crazy as hell.
Oh yeah,
but by the end of it, when you're sitting there with trash everywhere, you're like, that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I think the thing is and for us, it's always both family and friends. Like we have a pretty good circle of friend group that comes too. So it's like it'll be like half family, half friends, and it's always fun. I don't mind. My dad loved to host stuff. I'm a lot like my dad. I'm cook a lot. I love to cook, so I do the turkeys. I got 2 turkeys. I actually bought turkeys ahead this year because of the great turkey shortage of 2022, supposedly.
I know, I remember that. Yeah,
I was in HEB yesterday, and there were turkeys all over the place. So come on,
HEB's a different level, man. HEB's up here, dude.
Dude, you ain't lying. HEB. I mean, there's nothing you can't get at HEB, and I'm sorry. Between HEB and Central Market, I'll be happy for the rest of my life when it comes to groceries.
Central Market's legit.
I can't even believe.
Gosh.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We could go on and on
now.
about grocery store trivia. Believe me, food and
seriously,
food, beer, groceries. Next week we're going to come back and we'll do a Thanksgiving episode next week. We'll talk about what we're thankful for in the world of baseball, which should be fun. And obviously, like and subscribe. Let us know if you have any questions. Tell us what you're thankful for in baseball. I mean, Yordan Alvarez better be on that list. Jeremy Pena better be on your list. There's a lot of good things. Rob Manfred should not be on your list.
Word.
So everybody have a good weekend. We will see you guys next week, and go Astros.